The secrets of the cursed house. There was something unexplainable about this house. Laura felt it the moment she stepped over the threshold. The windows were fogged, the doors creaked under the weight of memories, and the air was heavy, filled with the sense of something deeply buried. The house where she had grown up now felt foreign to her, a place that wasn't just abandoned, but forgotten. Something in the walls seemed to be watching her, something hidden in the darkness, waiting for her return. Years ago, Laura had run away from this place, from the memories of what had happened. But now, she was forced to come back. Her father's death brought her back to her roots, to the house that was her family's last legacy. Despite the pain, despite the fear, she knew she had to confront her past. Darkness fell early here. It was autumn, and it was already getting dark as Laura stood in front of the entrance door. She hesitated for a long time before entering. The key turned with effort in the lock, and when she pushed the door open, the air inside hit her with unexpected force. It was cold inside the house, as if warmth hadn't touched it for years. Laura looked around. The furniture was covered in a thin layer of dust, and the paintings on the walls were half faded. Once this house had been full of life, with children's laughter and warmth. But now it was just an empty shell, hiding secrets no one wanted to uncover. Night came quickly. Laura settled into the old bedroom upstairs. She closed the windows and lit a small night lamp, whose light cast shadows on the walls. As she began to drift off to sleep, she heard a faint sound from somewhere. It was like a whisper, almost imperceptible, as if someone was standing at the threshold of the house. At first, she thought it was the wind, but the sound repeated, this time clearer. It was quiet but distinct. Someone or something seemed to be calling her. Laura sat up in bed, listening to the silence. The noise came again, this time like footsteps, slow and heavy, echoing on the old wooden staircase. Her heart raced. She knew she was alone in the house, or at least she was supposed to be. She stood up slowly, each movement feeling like a betrayal to the calm she tried to maintain. The footsteps continued. Laura approached the door to the room and opened it slightly, peering into the darkness of the hallway. There was no one there, only deep, impenetrable darkness. The next day, Laura decided to investigate. Memories of her past returned like a wave. The house wasn't just a home for her family. It harbored a tragedy. Her brother, he had disappeared here many years ago. No one knew what had happened to him or why. Laura remembered the long days of searching, but they had never found anything. She had pushed those memories deep into her mind, but now that loss was catching up with her again. As she wandered through the old rooms, she found a locked door in the attic that she had never noticed before. The lock looked rusted. Laura couldn't explain why, but she felt she had to open that door. After searching the house for a while, she found a small key in her father's desk drawer. When she placed it in the lock, the door creaked open, echoing through the house like a scream. Beyond the door was a staircase leading to what seemed like a small room shrouded in darkness. When she entered, the air turned icy cold. The room was nearly empty except for an old wooden cradle. The air was heavy, and the silence was oppressive. Laura looked around nervously. Then she heard it again. A soft whisper, as if coming from the house itself. "He is here." The shadows on the walls seemed to start moving, and Laura felt her blood freeze. Her heart pounded wildly. Something or someone was here. She turned, ready to flee, when she saw something on the floor. An old baby blanket with her brother's name embroidered on it. The memories of her brother's disappearance flooded back. Everyone had thought he had just gotten lost, but Laura had always suspected that something darker had happened. The whispers grew louder. Her fear clouded her thoughts. Whatever had caused her brother's disappearance was now here, in this house, in this room. She felt she was on the verge of something terrible, but she had no choice. She had to uncover the truth. Her eyes scanned the room, searching for something familiar, but apart from the old blanket, nothing else reminded her of the life that had disappeared here. Laura reached out and picked up the blanket. Even after all these years, the fabric still retained the imprint of the small body it once wrapped. What happened? She wondered as she carefully examined the room. She noticed small details she had missed before. Carved figures on the walls like tiny, sinister symbols. They looked ancient, far older than the house itself. This was more than just a childhood home. It was a place where the past and evil intertwined. In that moment, something shifted in the shadows. Laura froze. She clutched the blanket in her hands as if it could protect her from whatever was coming. A whisper filled the room, seeming to come from all directions at once. Her brother was here. She could feel him, as if his presence permeated the entire space around her. But this wasn't him. Not the one she remembered. This was something else that had taken over him. Laura dropped the blanket and rushed to the door, but it slammed shut before her with a dull thud. The ghost of her brother, or whatever remained of him, was holding her here. There was something unfinished, something that needed to be revealed. But what? Laura couldn't understand. The light in the room flickered, and then she saw something that made her freeze in place. Carved into the wall were the words, "He took him." Cold sweat broke out on her skin. Who? And why? Had someone or something taken her brother? And now it wanted her? Laura began to tremble. She was on the verge of panic. Just when she thought all was lost, a thought settled in her mind. She had to find her mother's journal. She remembered her mother speaking of strange things happening in this house. But no one had ever believed her. The journal had to be hidden somewhere. Maybe there she would find the answers. With her last bit of strength, Laura slipped out of the room and rushed down the stairs. She had to get to her mother's study, the place where all her secrets were kept. The study was locked, but Laura knew where the key was hidden. It was under the old rug, just as she remembered. Inside, the room was dark and cold. The shelves were dusty, and the books were worn with time. Laura hurried to the desk and began searching. Minutes that felt like hours passed, but finally she found the journal she was looking for. Its pages were yellowed and soaked with ink. As she began to read, her heart sank. The journal detailed strange rituals her father had conducted in the house. It described how he had tried to contact the other side, to summon spirits. One of the rituals was performed on the very day her brother disappeared. In that moment, Laura realized the cruel truth. Her brother hadn't just vanished. He had been sacrificed. The whispers began again, but this time more fiercely. Laura saw a figure, the ghostly silhouette of her brother standing in the hallway, grim and faceless. But he wasn't alone. Something bigger and darker stood behind him, hidden in the shadows. This creature was the cause of everything. Her father had summoned it in a desperate attempt to protect the family from a curse. But instead of helping, it had taken her brother. "I have to put an end to this," Laura told herself, feeling a new wave of determination. But how could she stop something so ancient and evil? As she flipped through the journal, she discovered a ritual her mother had planned, but never had the chance to complete. Following the instructions, Laura began the ritual meant to break the curse. The whispers grew louder, and the ghost of her brother watched her with sad eyes. When she uttered the last word of the ritual, everything shook, and it felt as if time stopped. The shadows receded, and her brother's image began to fade. Laura watched as he disappeared, freed from the curse that had bound him to this world. Laura collapsed to her knees, breathless and confused. She knew her brother was finally free. Yet something in the secret room unsettled her. The strange symbols on the walls, which she had noticed earlier, were not just decorative, they were part of the ritual and could be repeated if not destroyed. The house still held its dark secrets. Laura resolved to destroy the books and journals that contained the knowledge of the rituals. She wouldn't let anyone else fall victim to the evil that had reigned here. In her mind, she saw an image of her brother, the brave child he had been, and the tears shed for him. Though she couldn't bring him back, she could give him the peace he deserved. When she entered the library, Laura saw the shelves, covered in dust. She began gathering the books, her hands trembling with emotion. Her thoughts raced with ideas on how to destroy them. Only fire could obliterate what needed to be forgotten. The flames were bright and the smell of burning paper filled the air. Laura watched as the fire consumed the sadness, fear, and secrets of the house. Despite everything, Laura knew that the new beginning would come with its own consequences. After she destroyed the books, something in the house began to change. The air filled with a new energy. She felt that the walls that once trapped her now gave her space. The basement door, which had once seemed sealed, was now slightly ajar. Laura approached it, her heart pounding once again. Could it be possible? Maybe more secrets were hidden in the basement. With every step, she felt curiosity and fear battling in her soul. When she entered the basement, the light was dim, and the smell of dampness and old wood greeted her. Laura looked around and saw that everything was just as she remembered from her childhood. But she noticed something she hadn't seen before. A strange symbol painted on the wall, as if drawn by the house itself. She moved closer to examine it. The symbol seemed like a memory from a forgotten time. What is this? Laura thought. And at that very moment, she felt the symbol pulling her in. Every instinct in her screamed to run. What could she possibly learn when everything she had was long lost? She felt compelled to get closer, and when her fingers touched the symbol, the entire basement suddenly lit up. Laura realized she wasn't alone. Figures appeared in the space. Memories of generations of her family who had lived in this house and carried the same burden of the past. In that moment, everything became clear. Laura understood that her journey was just beginning. The house still held secrets that perhaps would never be revealed. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to find out what will be the next story.